No one was doing horror comics when we came out with R3. Very quickly, I think there were 130. Of course, they didn't have the art and they didn't have the stories. But in all honesty, I can't say they were gorier than we were because we figured we could out-gore anybody, and we did.
Guy murders his wife and he eats her so he can get rid of the evidence. What should we do with it? We come up with some crazy gimmick with a snap ending. We always love to have shock endings and surprise things. Much like the kind of thing that Twilight Zone had afterwards and Alfred Hitchcock. We did get grosser and grosser, there's no question about it. But we were doing tongue-in-cheek horror stories. And they were starting to say things like, hey, you know, this is ruining our kids, and they're going to become ghouls, vampires, and murderers, which is a lot of nonsense.
These comic book covers that you are seeing here are a sample of what the children of the United States are reading today. 20 million copies of these comic books are pouring off the presses every single month. They're getting into the hands of children, and their contents match the covers. They are full of crime, terror, and horror.
They were attacking the crime comics, which preceded me. They were attacking Superman back in the 30s and 40s because some kid might think he could fly and jump off the roof. They attacked comic books because you couldn't read the print, and it was ruining all the kids' eyes. They came up with more damn reasons to attack comics over the years. It's really kind of ludicrous when you look back.
I see this as an absolute win.
Oh, somebody please think of the children!
The only way that you can really stop this kind of thing is to arouse public opinion. It's very upsetting. It has a bad moral effect.
Forced adversity.
Ask yourself, what's more terrifying, fear or the frightened?
The facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
Bad, B-A-D-D, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth.
And they're pushing identity politics with this. They 100% are.
How do you think homosexuals reveal themselves?
And the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty.
I think there ought to be a law against them. Tonight I'm going to show you why.
Welcome to the FAP. Nancy used to do that for me. Handsy Nancy, I called her.
War. We are at war. No, we're not actually technically at war, but I mean, you know, we did a war thing.
We're doing some military adventurism.
Military adventurism. I like that term. I bet Trump would like that term too.
Probably.
It definitely obfuscates the whole fucked up nature of what's going on. Welcome everybody to this latest fuck edition of FAPcast news thing stream. Here we are in the wasteland, of course. Which, you know, we're only ahead of the curve by a little bit, I think, at this point. So, yeah, in case you missed it, we as in, you know, our United States military, as directed by its commander-in-chief, you know, so really just Trump, completely and totally obliterated nuclear facilities in Iran.
Bombed 3 nuclear facilities.
Stepping into their little beef, that little squabble they were having with Israel, which was already kind of scary enough, to be honest. The Middle East has been a hotbed and a place of a source of concern and conflict for really millennia at this point. But in the 20th and 21st century, it's been, you know, decades and decades. And man, I feel like this is just a big step into the pile of shit that we have never taken before as a country.
It is absolutely an own goal in a lot of ways that, like, we had just gotten out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I might not.
Come on. I mean, you quit fucking, you know, look, news was already bad enough. I hadn't thought about that yet. Come on.
Don't even, bro. Sib. Well, Blade's not coming. There's only ever been one Blade. So we got out of all of our Middle Eastern occupations. We got out of that game under Trump, funnily enough. And now he is rip-roaring back in.
Right. It's kind of weird that he ducked out of the Iran deal, you know, because Obama had you know, signed it initially, or what?
Right. Yeah. So there was a nuclear deal that was in place towards the end of the Obama administration that just had to get final approval. And day one, Trump tore it up in his first regime.
Weird to act like so nonchalant and just like, you know, whatever, who cares about this Iran having nukes thing but then now, you know, this.
Well, he tore it up. His justification for tearing it up is that Iran was developing nuclear weapons, which is possible.
However, you know, and as you know, if you've watched the FAPcast even recently, you know we're no fan of Tulsi Gabbard.
No.
However, you know, taking it at face value that she's actually operating based on information she's getting from her intelligence agencies that she's somehow fucking freakishly the head of.
Right.
They weren't actually and weren't close to developing nukes. And, you know, I mean, they've been saying that Iran was like, oh, they're about to have a nuke next week for like 20 years.
Right.
There's different people been saying that, rather.
Right. Well, my favorite one is Oliver North has been saying Iran has been developing intercontinental ballistic missiles for 40, 50 years. Of course, he's the guy who was selling them the missiles in the Iran-Contra scandal. So I guess he would know.
Right.
He was the guy selling them the missiles.
Well, let's run down the timeline here.
Yep.
What happened? Going to Axios here.
Can we put that Axios article up on screen?
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay. Just because I'm on a remote rig at the moment, so I don't have my full array.
Trump claims U.S. strikes obliterated Iran's key nuclear facilities. U.S. military conducted airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan on Sunday morning local time. In a historic address from the White House, Trump called the operation a spectacular military success and claimed Iran's key uranium enrichment sites have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace, Trump said, flanked by Vance, Rubio, and Hegseth.
Do you know what I do when I want to make peace with someone? I fired 30 Tomahawk missiles from a nuclear submarine.
Hey, we don't know that they're Tomahawks yet, do we? Because it could have been the MOBs, right? That's what I heard.
I had NBC was reporting Tomahawks.
Okay, fair enough. There was definitely seismic activity that was read. Was the first sign of that's the indication that he's not lying about this. So this cannot continue, he says. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran, far greater than we've witnessed over the last 8 days. Why it matters. His decision to intervene directly in support of Israel's effort to dismantle Iran's nuclear program marks an historic escalation in the Middle East. It's an intervention fraught with risks and uncertainty, one that Trump and many of his predecessors had sought to avoid, including through diplomacy with Iran. And, you know, it's really a fucking... It's a hornet's nest because it's weird because, like, you know, we presume that there's some kind of friendly something going on with Trump and Putin to some degree, right?
Right.
But Russia is pals with Iran.
Yeah, Russia buys especially a lot of their drone technology from Iran. Because Iran. So what's funny about the last time we did a war in the Middle East is that the Iranians were able to acquire a lot of the U.S. drones that were shot down or went down in Iraq.
Oh, cool.
And reverse engineered that technology to make their own. Which, given, you know, that's just how you do spycraft sometimes, right? Like, they are not the only person to buy our drones on the black market by any stretch of the imagination. But they were the ones next door. Yeah. Yeah. It's like... Gods. It's one of those things. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that, you know, let's talk about potential. Well, we'll finish going through the timeline here.
Yeah.
The attack, which came on the night of unprecedented war between Israel and Iran, could provoke retaliation from Tehran against U.S. troops and military installations across the region. And Trump posted on his stupid fucking social media site, which is also now a part of this, and we'll get to that in a minute. Any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. So in the speech, he said the objective of the strikes was to destroy their nuclear enrichment capacity and halt the nuclear threat posed by the number one state sponsor of terror. Is that even true? Isn't it Saudi Arabia? That technically, isn't that tied to a lot of the...
It has been the talking point of the Republican Party for a long time that Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They are certainly a major sponsor of terrorism,
sure.
But I mean, if you're looking for the people who did 9/11, it was financed by Saudis. Like,
yeah, that's what I thought.
Bin Laden was Saudi and comes from Saudi money, like money. Yeah,
Trump warned the U.S. still has many targets left in Iran. Of course you do. I mean, there's until it's wiped off the map, you have nothing but targets, man.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So Israeli officials said the Trump administration, blah, 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 blah. So the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization confirmed the 3 nuclear sites were attacked and condemned the American enemy for a brutal attack that contradicts international laws. That doesn't sound like they're going to just go away peacefully with their tails between their legs. Of course, that's from the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization. I don't know how connected they are to the actual government or what, but
I mean, they are probably a governmental organization.
Sure. The organization said, despite the evil conspiracies of its enemies, Iran would not be deterred from continuing to develop its national nuclear energy industry. And that's, you know, that if we're assuming that if we're believing they don't actually have nuclear weapons in development, then they're just developing nuclear energy, which, you know, is just nuclear energy, right?
It is much easier to enrich uranium to the point where it's useful for making nuclear reactors than it is to enrich it to the point where you can use it to make a bomb. There are certain types of explosive devices, and they were all over the media in the early 2000s, called dirty bombs, which is just taking a traditional bomb, putting radioactive material in it to irradiate a large area with a traditional bomb. they certainly could do that, but then again, we haven't seen them deploy that sort of weapon before. They haven't sold that weapon to their allies, so that they haven't taken that step makes me think they haven't done it, just because I think that there's a certain amount of, when you have the American empire saying that you are developing nuclear weapons and you're a belligerent state opposed to the American empire, you're encouraged to make them be wrong. That hasn't stopped us from just lying.
Right.
I mean, because we're this whole like weapons of mass destruction thing with no evidence, and we're going to pull the trigger on bombing a place. We ran that game 22 years ago with the Iraq War, for which there was no evidence, and it undercut the standing of the United States in the world.
Yeah, and and obviously myself included, a lot of people got wrapped up in that post 9/11, war fervor. I was, very much of the opinion at the time that, yep, we just got to go deal with this shit. We can't let these people, and of course I had almost had no nuance in my understanding of what was going on in the Middle East or anything at that point. It didn't matter to me. They fucked with America, So I think it was a lot easier sell then. I don't think it's gonna be as easy a sell if we go to war. I mean, of course, he could just be expecting them to retaliate, and then we have a justification in his mind.
I think if Iran is going to retaliate, and they already have been, they've been shooting missiles into Israel. Israel and Iran have been shooting missiles at each other, I mean, repeatedly throughout history, but right now, back and forth this last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They've been bombing each other back and forth. And I think my best guess is that the attacks today by the United States were an attempt to take pressure off of Israel. Which, to be honest, makes us sound like a client state.
This makes me think too, like, just to kind of pull it back a little bit. Israel going through this shit, is how much of that was just like to get attention off of their fucking genocide that they're doing? Because it seems like, from what I can tell, that there's definitely some dog wagging happening with when it comes to Israel. They claim that there were 2 attempts on President Trump's life from Iran, which they've shown no evidence. We've seen literally no
evidence of that. Yeah.
So that just seems like something they probably fed Trump to get him personally invested. I mean, it definitely seems like BB has got his hand up Trump's ass right now. But I mean, it really just seems, what it seems like is that Trump has made money from Israeli something. I don't know. We'll have no evidence of that yet either, but I don't understand.
Well, Jared Kushner's already trying to buy land in Gaza, right?
True.
And even in the midst of the genocide in Gaza, that has not stopped the continued invasion of Israeli settlers into the West Bank this whole time. And it's a failure of the American media to just ignore the fact that the Gazan genocide is part of a greater whole.
Yeah, so I just, as a quick aside on the media and what they've been up to the last 8 or so days.
Imagine a playground, and there's a bully that nobody likes. Okay. Iran.
No.
You didn't even. You got to let me finish.
The way you're saying
what?
it.
Iran?
We need to normalize relations with Iran.
We need to bomb Iran. Does sound cooler. Nobody wants this. Could I interest you in some cool footage of bombs exploding? No. What if I told you they're an existential threat? Oh. Weapons of mass destruction. Okay. Please? No.
The please is what gets you.
There's you. Are you there? Can you hear me? Okay.
Wait,
apparently I ruined you. I ruined it. There you are.
Oh.
All right. I
No,
don't know
I'm
how
just
that
in the background. All right.
There we go. Okay.
All right, we're good. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Morgan.
Don't worry about
See my
that.
face.
We're actually cartoon characters.
Yes, tonight, not tomorrow, or today, depending on where you are, because it's already.
At least not until Bob gets his own cartoon avatar. Then we can do it.
Then we can do it. Yeah.
Show, sure.
So I wanna bring something up. Pop it out onto its own window and do one of these. All right, I'm gonna share something because I think the stream title points it out. Anti-war Trump bombs Iran, and Trump positioned himself as the anti-war candidate and said that Biden was the pro-war candidate, in part because of his support for Israel, and Ukraine.
Right.
And funny how,
funny how being in defense of the country that was attacked unprovoked, as in Ukraine,
right,
is pro-war. Of course, Biden's steps on his own dick by being supporting Israel, which is definitely the pro-war entity there, by and large.
But yeah, so I just shared an article. If you want to swap this one on screen, about some of our favorite people. So this is an NBC article. Mega influencers fall in line behind Trump after U.S. airstrikes hit Iran.
Of course they do.
So we've got, Super PAC that worked for J.D. Vance, Ryan Grudusky, who works for that Super PAC, saying, "Oh, people don't want an escalation where ground troops sent it in, but this isn't Iraq."
It would be harder to deal with Iran.
It would be. Friend of the show, Jack Posobiec. This motherfucker, once again. Before the airstrikes, he was hoping that there wouldn't be airstrikes because he doesn't want to be associated with the worst of Bush-era neocons. But after the airstrikes, he's on board with it.
Of course.
Steve Bannon, same deal. Charlie Kirk, my favorite here. America stands with President Trump. So we're already running. We're hours into this, and we are already running back the "you're not a real American unless you want to bomb foreign countries."
Hey, at least Tucker Carlson so far is sticking to his guns. Yeah, or he hasn't said anything anyway. So
he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't said anything yet. We're still waiting for his word on the subject. My people will reach out to his people. Oh, Ollie North was already given his comments about this the other day. Wow wrote in, will there be an Iran-Contra 2.0? Honestly, I don't recall much about it as a kid, seeing it on television, and there were some dude named Oliver North on television and no cartoons. Yeah.
We would be lucky if this was Iran-Contra 2.
We would be.
This Iran-Contra 2 was not actually a conflict. It was just a fucking shady goddamn nefarious deal that Reagan made.
It was funding two conflicts, but neither of them were us bombing anyone.
Right.
We were just selling weapons to different bad people. No, Oliver North is still a Fox News contributor to this day. And he talks about how it's dangerous that Iran has all these missiles. And I guess he would know because he sold Iran the missiles.
To be fair, I was being slightly sarcastic there.
Slightly. He has a bone to pick. Because he got burned.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the right has no spine.
It seems like the Trump administration is like, okay, what is constitutional Okay, let's do what is not constitutional. Let's do all that. In like every single way, it seems like they're checking off boxes to do all the unconstitutional shit.
Oh yeah.
You know, as if to exert that it doesn't give a fuck about the Constitution, almost as if that's the point.
Right. The point is, I genuinely believe that part of this is that there was a growing movement in the House and Senate to return war powers to the Congress, because by the Constitution, it's not the president who has the right to declare war; it's the Congress.
And it seems like he's using as a preface for this. He's using basically the logic that we had for going and bombing, going into Afghanistan without actually declaring official war. Right?
Certainly, going into Iraq, it's the same.
Right. Yeah.
Same pretext of weapons of mass destruction. Right. Like, we had broad support to go into Afghanistan.
And they just kind of piggybacked on that.
Right.
But I mean, the major difference here is that I don't think that the vast majority of the country is not on board with this shit.
No.
And then also the head of our intelligence agencies contradicted the claim, which is in stark contrast to every intelligence agency saying, yep, they definitely got some weapons of mass destruction over there in Iraq back then. Mm-hmm. So I guess he thinks it's going to play out the same way, maybe. I don't know. But I don't see it.
I think Donald Trump had it right back in the Obama administration that if the president is doing bad, he'll declare war and attack Iran to shore up his numbers.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump was spot on about President Donald Trump.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I know that they're back in the first administration, the first term, I know there was plenty of tweets that were coming around to haunt him, or not really, but to show that he was a hypocrite. Yeah. But speaking of tweets, or truths.
Oh gods.
An interesting thing occurred. And I don't quite know. I don't know if anybody does know what it means.
All right, let's pull it up. There I am.
So,
again.
Truth Social crashes as Trump live posts Iran bombing. Within minutes of him posting details on the U.S. military strike in Iran, Truth Central, as he said one time, Truth Central. I don't know. David Pakman has an audio drop that he uses of it anytime he talks about Truth Central, and it's like Truth Central. It's Donald Trump saying it like his fucking mouth is falling out.
Right. His poor dentures.
So it malfunctioned on Saturday night, and amid the announcement that the United States had bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, displaying error messages, network failed, message read, please try again. I can't help but think that this was maybe on purpose somehow.
Honestly, given the signal chat leaks we've had, and there was so after the signal leaks, they used another app that was basically a fork of Signal, and that got hacked and a bunch of DoD information got leaked. This may have just been defense intelligence hacking into his website and turning it the fuck off. Going, God damn it, stop leaking what you're doing, you idiot. This might be a literal own goal of U.S. intelligence shutting down the president's social media network so he stops leaking ongoing military operations on social media. Because he's a moron.
Right.
Who surrounds himself by yes men who are at least as big a morons as he is.
Oh, God. Well, we'll definitely be updating with whatever we learn in the interim tomorrow on the FAPcast proper. I don't know that there's a whole lot to say. I just wanted to come out and say, hey guys, in case we don't see you tomorrow, in case
in case the end of the world happens.
The world isn't here. It's good run. We love you.
Yeah.
And by God, let us live long enough to see Superman next month, please.
Please.
We don't ask for a lot around here.
I try not to. I really want to see Superman. I also kind of want to see Fantastic Four, but
same.
I'm very much more interested in Superman.
I also want to see Toxic Avenger, but that that's in August, so
that's in August. Yeah, we don't know that we've got that long.
Not gonna hold my breath on that one.
No, I think it's. I think this is the classic playbook of we have problems at home, right? We've had a huge domestic backlash against the regime's overreach. I mean, earlier today you had Angelinos pushing out or effectively scaring ICE out of their hotels in LA because fuck ICE. You have his whole tariff policy is absolutely a disaster. You have the whole taco meme that's driving him up a wall. And what's a strong man gonna do when everyone thinks you're a wimp? He's gonna fucking pull me up on stream again. Hi, I'm Morgan. Yeah, Trump was the one who put me on stream there. It wasn't Dane. Trump is trying to interrupt our stream because we're shit talking him. That's
it honestly seems like I don't want it to be this simple, but knowing what we've learned about the man over the last fucking almost decade now, or literal decade now, he's been in this our lives. It seems like this might partly at least be kind of cope for how terrible that parade was. Like, he needed which is just so fucking pathetic and sad and goddamn stupid to think that might be the reality, but it might be part of the reality of this. Like, I'm sure that's not the only thing that contributed, but yeah. If let's say there's an alternate timeline where that parade went really fucking well, and like everybody was there and the parade wasn't really sad and there wasn't those squeaky tanks and shit, and he didn't look like he was the worst birthday ever, then maybe he wouldn't have made this choice,
Right. No, I think that I think a lot goes into it. I think part of it is that he's an idiot and he's going to do stupid things, and he's surrounded himself with yes men. The DOD head is a drunk. The head of U.S. intelligence is a foreign agent. Like, he could not. And
sorry.
No, that's fine. It was this, squeaking happens. Little WD-40, I don't know, but no, I just think that, like, at some point it has to be dereliction of duty for our military to go along with this. Because what the fuck is the point?
I feel like if we make it out of let's say we make it out of this Trump presidency and we, end up with somebody, with half a brain and half sane,
right?
Don't we need to kind of like rewrite a lot of fucking rules,
yeah,
we can't just, we can't just go back into it like, well, that was unfortunate. Well, back to business as usual, guys.
Right. Because it's going to be, the back to business Democrats are going to try and back to business it. And not all Democrats are back to business Democrats. But that's just sort of the controlling interest in the party. Will try to get back to business. Unfortunately, the facade of American democracy is broken. For everyone to see, and we all see it left, right, and center. We see that the system is fucked. And to unfuck it, you're going to have to put in the work.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to have to do something. But I am, I don't know. I'm pretty tired. So I think, I didn't want to be on too long tonight. Just wanted to hop on and let you know we're thinking about you guys. And we'll be back with a more prepared and not as stunned show tomorrow, hopefully.
Right. This was getting the stunned out so we can have good analysis for all you tomorrow.
Or at least as good as we usually do, which, you know. It's up to you
Cold,
to decide.
but fair.
You know, it did remind me though that my very first video ever was about whenever Trump assassinated Soleimani, I think it was.
Yeah, the Iranian general.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find that real quick. I know it's not like up to watch on my channel, but I'm gonna see if I have it downloaded somewhere. Because
it's just like, because that, like, everyone was afraid that was going to provoke a war with Iran, but I don't think Iran geographically is in a position to have a war with the like an offensive war against the United States, kind of because nobody is, because the United States is this big angry land strip that's hard to attack in a war situation. I don't know how you do war against America, and I think that's like part of the reason it's hard to judge at some of these events, like how much support some causes have, is because, like, for like the No Kings protest, right? That was kind of everywhere all at once.
Yep.
Where like the big Trump birthday bash was in one place. That not all of Trump's support is going to roll into. Poor Jaybird. I'm so sorry, Jaybird.
Sorry.
Yeah,
you know,
you really are.
But technically, it's the Force Diversity. It's a FAP cast, so it's even better.
FAP cast. Yeah, cheers.
But yeah, that was sorry. it happened. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I think that it's extremely difficult for a full fascist takeover as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's just you know, for the same reason that, yeah, like exactly what you're saying, for that, like, it's hard to invade or conquer this country just purely based on geographical real estate being fucking enormous. It's the same thing, you know, with Russia, except, you know, most of their shit's just like frozen tundra, but
yeah, it's just like, and that's the issue that they're having with, like, you know, when they're trying to make these big pushes into cities, is that, like, the Trump administration has basically retasked all of federal law enforcement into immigration enforcement.
Yes.
And sure, they're rounding hotel workers up and day laborers up.
Well, they're not supposed to anymore. He's changing his positions on that stuff right now.
Well, that's what he said, but those people are still being rounded up.
True. You know what I learned is that apparently a lot of these ICE agents are actually also police officers. So, like, you know, metropolitan and otherwise police officers. So they're actually being taken away from
actually doing their jobs
to do this bullshit. So, in just every way possible, it's just bad. It's all bad moves, man.
Yeah.
Good. Fucking good.
Good.
I hope it's bigger. I hope it's bigger. I just want it to be bigger every time.
Well, I think that for a 4th of July No Kings protest, this is gonna put eyes on that movement for sure.
Yes, and I don't know if Iran is more or less mountainous than Afghanistan, but they both are mountainous nations, and yeah, I think it would be difficult in some of the same ways and probably some different ways as well, because it's such a destabilized country as Afghanistan was at the time.
Does it share a border with Kuwait? Because part of the reason we were able to make Iraq happen was because of our ties with Kuwait.
Right.
I don't know if they share a border.
Don't you love how we're such good guys, America? We go and we help these little countries whenever they get attacked, and then we're like, now we're staying, motherfucker. You got to let us do whatever we want to do while we're here. You know?
Yeah, like we don't have.
There's no
border.
It's all strings attached. You know what I mean? Like we can't just be the actual heroes and come and save some country,
right?
And let them, like, you guys go do your thing. No, we're gonna put some bases in here, and if we want to come through your country to get it to another country that's right next door to you, we're doing it.
Well, that was it was one of those things that, like, we had already had a colonial empire in the late 19th century.
Sure.
And we had one of the only colonial empires after World War One. As that started to fall apart, and definitely by the end of World War II, we were sort of the only, like us in the USSR.
Well, if only this was the 60s when Iran was basically trying to be like America.
Right.
If you ever look at the history of that country, there's a period when they were very Americanized compared to now. We probably would have had a lot of people that would have welcomed us there. I don't know. Of course, we wouldn't have a reason to go there. I don't know. It does feel like a nightmare timeline. I would caution against being too
right. I think that if Iran is going to launch attacks on U.S. assets, there's no border with Kuwait. Then we don't really have the bases in Afghanistan and Iraq anymore, so that's not going to help either. So it would be a proper messy ass invasion, and that's going to be a whole boots on the ground thing. So gods, I hope not.
Recruitment is low,
and recruitment is low, and boy, they just this month laid off 10,000 service members.
Oh, and yeah,
just kind of for hanging out. For doing their jobs?
I mean, I guess they could institute the draft again, and that'd be incredibly unpopular. But I doubt they'll do that. I doubt Congress would do that. But
Ben Gurion and a biological research facility were just hit. What the fuck?
What's that mean?
I don't know. I'm going to look it up. It's an airport.
Oh, this was 23 hours ago. It's an airport.
It's an airport, yeah.
Like a day ago. So this is older news.
It's in Israel. It looks like. Yeah, Iran and Israel are going to keep bombing each other. This might slow down Iran's bombing of Israel for a little bit. If we were really stupid, we could do a land invasion off the Persian Gulf. I hope someone checks when rainy season is or along the Tigris and Euphrates, because those rivers flood, and they flood bad.
I was going to say to this one, I am from Texas, and I am from the region in Southeast Texas where it is the largest cluster of chemical plants, refineries in the world, except for in the Middle East. And I remember after 9/11, the day of 9/11, people talking about how if there was a second attack, that our region was one of the top 5 most likely regions they would hit. And that was pretty fucking scary because if you hit the right spot there, you're just gonna fucking destroy an entire coastline essentially,
right?
And cripple a great deal of chemical production that is necessary for all kinds of stuff.
I think if Iran is going to target American assets, it's going to be military targets. It's going to be naval bases, air bases, and those that are already in the Middle East. They're not going to.
Of course,
they're not going to waste their whatever ICBMs they have.
The problem is because they're buddies with China and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem potentially, and that's where you get into what you call world war scenario.
Right. This is where we get into a world war scenario,
which we will definitely get into more tomorrow. But as for tonight, I'm tapped out. I need to have some mushroom cloud dreams.
Oh, there you go. I'm gonna have some water.
Yeah. Bob of the Old Ways, I think, will be joining us tomorrow.
I hope so.
We like when he does that. Although he's a dirty trickster guy.
The trickster
shared a tweet earlier that I thought it was from net today. It was from fucking 6 years ago. He didn't tell me, even though it was right there.
Well, it's one of those. There's always a tweet thing.
You're on X and part of Tel Aviv just got hit just now. Well, I mean, okay, that's not saying anything. There's lots of literal fucking AI fake shit on X at this point.
Well, and it is Israel and Iran have been bombing each other all week, so that yes, that's horrible. I would like them to stop bombing people, please.
Iranian missiles intercepted over Tel Aviv after U.S. So they intercepted. This is 28 minutes ago from AP. Siren sounded in Tel Aviv on Sunday morning with Iranian missiles were intercepted after the U.S. inserted itself into Israel's war with Iran, striking 3 nuclear bases. So that's it. That's literally the only information so far.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We'll follow up tomorrow or later today.
Please subscribe if you aren't. And remember, we're trying to get to 8,000 subs right now, man. We're, right around the corner, less than 100. So, let's get there. And take care of yourselves and love your family and your neighbors and your dogs and your neighbors' dogs. And
yeah. And tomorrow, if you're gonna need something to cheer up with, I have some fun comics history news I want to talk about tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm looking forward to that as well. Cool. Yep. Y'all have a good night. And ironically, peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.